This video, we're going to look at perimeter of different shapes. We're going to learn a few new formulas. The first one we're going to look at is the perimeter of a rectangle. So in a rectangle, you're going to have lengths and widths. And honestly, it doesn't matter which one you label as the length and the width. What does matter is that you make sure that the lengths across from each other and the widths are across from each other. So when you're looking at the perimeter, you're going to always have two lengths and two widths. And so to find that perimeter, you're going to just have the length twice and the width twice. And so basically what you're doing with perimeter is just adding how much you have around your shape. So the perimeter is like the outside of your shape. With a square, all four of your sides are going to always be the same. And so you're just adding up all four of those sides. And so in symbols, you could say that it's one side times 4. With a triangle, sometimes, most of the time, all three of those sides are different. And so for the triangle, we're just going to simply add up all three of the sides. Which again, you could do the same thing for the rectangle and the square. There's just a shorter formula you can use for those. So let's look at some examples and find the perimeter. So in the first one, we have a square. So that means we know all four of these sides are the same. So we know this is also 6.8, 6.8, and 6.8. So we've got two options here. Option 1, we could just take this and add 6.8 plus 6.8 4 times. Option 2, we can use our formula that says the perimeter of a square is 4 times the length of a side. And so I'm going to do that and say that this is 4 times 6.8. And so my perimeter would simply be 27.2 yards. You always want to make sure that you use units. And for perimeter, the units are going to be the same as the units of your side. The next one we have is a rectangle. And so in a rectangle, our lengths are going to be the same. So the side across from this is also going to be 9 miles. And the side across from this width will also be 8 miles. So again, I could simply go through and just add this, 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 and this together and be done. Or we can use our formula for the perimeter of a rectangle, which says perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And so that would tell me that I have 2 times 9 plus 2 times 8. And so I could simplify that, and I would get 18 plus 16. And so my final perimeter would be 34. Again, we always want to keep our units the same as the side. So we have 34 miles. Okay. Our next example is a triangle. Okay, so here we are just going to add up all three of the sides because we don't have a specific formula for this. So we're just going to take 20 plus 21 plus 10, and that's going to give us a perimeter of 51 feet. We're going to keep the units the same. Same thing here. We've got triangle. We do have two sides that are the same, but we're still going to just simply add up all three of those sides. And so we get a perimeter of 49 centimeters. Okay. The next one we're going to look at is just a simple parallelogram. So in a parallelogram, opposite sides are parallel, but they're also congruent. That means that this side is going to be 45, and this side is going to be 46. And so we can, again, add up all the sides because anytime you're finding the perimeter, it's just the distance around the outside of your figure. So I can do 45 and 45, 46 and 46. The order you add them in doesn't matter. And so I get a total of 182 meters. The next figure we have is a trapezoid. Again, the perimeter is just the distance around the outside of your figure. So I'm just going to add each one of these sides together. And so my perimeter is 15 plus 33 plus 15 plus 27. And so I get a final perimeter of 90 meters. Okay. For this one, again, we would just add up all of the sides. So again, anytime you're finding the perimeter, you're just adding up all the sides of the figure. So my perimeter for this shape would just be 8 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7. And I would add those up and get my total, which would be 30. And my units would still be the same, so inches. For this one, again, we're just adding up the outside of the figure. In this irregular figure, we don't have all of the sides, so let's see what we do know. So we know this side here, this side is 12. We know this side is 15. We know this side is 3. We know this side is 9. And we know this side is 10. So we can use those to determine the other sides. So if I look here, this side is the same as this side. So that tells me then that this side here has to also be 3. And then I know that this side has to match the side across from it. So it has to also be 10. Now, the other side, not quite so straightforward, but that's okay. We can figure it out. If I look at the 12 and I say, okay, well, I know that this much has to be 12. And that's because if I extend this down, this much has to be 15, which means that this much has to be 9. So I can fill that in. This is 12. This would be 15. And this would be 9. And now I have all of the lengths of the outside of my figure. And we can solve for our perimeter. So perimeter, I've got 10. I'm just going to work my way from here and go around. Plus 12, plus 3, plus 15, plus 3, 9, 10. Now I'm down here at the bottom, so 9 again, 15 again, and 12 again. And when I add all those together, it gives me a total of 98 feet. The next shape that we're going to look at is a circle. And so a circle, the perimeter of that circle is called the circumference. So the circumference is the distance around the edge of the circle. So basically, it's the same thing as the perimeter. So all the way around the edge of this circle, that is the circumference. Okay. Now, the radius of the circumference goes from the center to the edge. The diameter of the circle goes from one side to the other side, but it has to go through the center. The center is a very important point. It is equidistant from every point in the circle. So to find the circumference of a circle, we have a formula. So we have a couple of formulas. So the circumference of a circle can be found by taking 2 times pi times the radius. Or we could find the circumference by taking pi times the diameter. And that's because the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. Because if the radius goes from the side to the center and I extend that, you can see that 2 times the radius would be the same as a diameter. So in symbols, what that looks like is the circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r, or pi times d. And pi is an irrational number, so pi is approximately 3.14. Or you could say that pi is approximately 22 sevenths. And so sometimes you'll be asked to give an exact answer, and that means that you're going to leave pi in your answer. Sometimes you'll be asked to give an approximate answer, and that's when you're going to use that 3.14 to estimate it. So let's look at some examples. So it says find the exact or approximate circumference of the circle as indicated. So in example 1, it says find the exact circumference. So when it says find the exact circumference, that means you're going to leave pi in your answer. Okay, so I have the diameter because this goes from one side to the other side and it goes through my center. So that tells me that this is the diameter. So I'm going to use the formula circumference is equal to pi times diameter. And so circumference is equal to pi times 39. And I'm not going to put that in my calculator because if I put that in my calculator, I am going to get a decimal, and I don't want that because I want an exact answer. So I'm just going to say that my answer is 39 pi. But I always want to have units, so I'm going to have 39 pi miles. Okay. Let's get another one. So this one again, it says give an exact answer. So that means that we're going to keep pi in our answer. This is a radius because this one only goes halfway. It goes from the side to the center. So that means that I have a radius. So I'm going to use the circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. And so I have 2 times pi times 108. And so if I clean that up, I would get 2 times 108, which is 216 times pi. But again, I want to have my units, so kilometers. Now let's look at what happens if it asks us to give an approximate answer. So when you see approximate, that is when you can round. And it tells us to use 3.14 for pi. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, still got to decide, is this diameter or radius? This is all the way across, so it's a diameter. So I'm still using the same formula. Circumference is equal to pi times diameter. So circumference is equal to 3.14 times 71. And that we would put in our calculator. So when you see approximate, that means that you're going to use the approximate number. And in this case, they tell us to use 3.14. If they said use 22/7, we would use that. So we would put this in our calculator, 3.14 times 71, and we would get 222.94 kilometers. Okay. This one, again, it says find the approximate circumference. Use pi equals 3.14. And I have a radius because it only goes halfway. So circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. So I've got 2 times, instead of pi, I'm going to use 3.14 times my radius. And then I would just put that in my calculator. And I would multiply 2 times 3.14 times 104. And we would get 653.12 inches. The last thing we're going to look at is how to use these for word problems. So this one says the sides of a triangle are 817 feet, 213 feet, 717 feet. Find its perimeter. So we want to find the perimeter. We know we have a triangle and we're given the sides. I'm going to start out by drawing it because that helps me. So I've got 817 feet, 213 feet, and 717 foot. And I just drew a triangle and I put those as my sides. And I know that to find the perimeter, I just need to add those all up. So 817 plus 213 plus 717. So that gives me a total perimeter of 1,747 feet. Final answer. Okay. So it says find the perimeter of a square picture frame if the length of one side is 11.9 inches. So again, I like to start by drawing a picture, so I'm going to draw a square this time. One side is 11.9 inches. Well, I know that in a square, all 4 of my sides are the same. So that means that my perimeter would be 4 times 11.9. So the perimeter of this picture frame would be 47.6 inches. Last one. A rectangular room measures 17 feet by 10 foot. Find the cost of installing a strip of wallpaper around the room if the wallpaper costs 93 cents per foot. So you've got a rectangular room, 17 foot by 10 foot, but we want to find the cost of installing just a strip of wallpaper around the room, and it's 93 cents per foot. So the first thing we want to do is figure out how much we're going to need. So that means we're going to figure out our room is rectangular and it's 17 foot by 10 foot. What's our perimeter? So perimeter rectangle would be 2 times 17 plus 2 times 10. So that gives me 34 plus 20 So 54 feet. So the perimeter around this room is 54 feet, but each foot is going to cost me 93 cents. So my cost, let me write that out, my cost is going to be 54 times 0.93. So it's going to cost me $50.22.